Dina Does. I'm Dina, and I know a little bit about a lot, but I want to know more. So join me on this path to self-discovery. This week on Dina Does, we are covering divine feminine, one of my favorite topics. And today we have Dr. Amanda Hanson, the midlife muse. And she's also a psychologist, author, and everything else. So grateful to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dina. I could talk about divine feminine and feminine energetics forever and ever.
Same. And I found you on TikTok because I'm on spiritual TikTok. I don't see anything else. I don't see any dances, nothing. It's just all good stuff. And the video that made me stop and first of all, just perk my ears up. We were talking about women and how we need to move through things versus yoga and, mindfulness, staying still. And I didn't know how to articulate this, but this is what I've been feeling for years. I tried meditation, I tried yoga. None of it worked for me in a way that I expected it to work. I got different things out of it. But it wasn't until I just followed my intuition of just moving my body when I wake up and moving the emotions when I'm going through. So I just want to let you know that's how I found you. But then, of course, I stalked your page and everything you were saying was like, oh my God, she's in my brain. She just articulates it so beautifully. So that's why I wanted to have you on today. And we're going to cover it all. But one more thing before we get started. My daughter is 26. And, she doesn't think anybody's cool. She's so chic and cool herself. And she's just over everything. And after I started stalking your videos, she sends me one of your videos and she says, Mom, I love her. And I said, okay, well, if Lexi loves her,
I'm so flattered. I'm telling you, I could have never imagined that so many 20 and 30-year-olds would be reaching out to me. I can't even keep up with the influx of messages I'm getting from them. Anywhere from, will you be my mom to will you help my mom? It's really fascinating because I think that girls of today really are looking for a role model that is speaking to this range of what it means to be a woman. I know when I was that age, I was hungering for someone to look to show me, because there's no actual rite of passage. Yes, we get our periods. And at least for someone like myself, I'm about to be 50. My mom handed me a box of pads and was like, don't tell anybody. Here, go put this in your underwear. And I was like, what in the world is what? And we had to figure it out as we went, whispering, asking our girlfriends. And so I think it's shrouded in so much shame that we spend so many years thinking it's wrong, it's bad, it's dirty. We're not supposed to tell anybody. We have to be so careful, the level of responsibility now. Also why I think women are so responsible at such a young age and carry that through to most of our lives, because we literally had to plan when we had to change our pad from the time we were 11, 12, 13 years old. We couldn't just go about the day and not worry about it. We had to have a level of responsibility and care for our body so that we didn't have blood everywhere. And so
I never even thought of that's a whole new way of thinking about responsibility as a woman.
Yes, we couldn't just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm not in the mood to do that today. We had to do it. And so, even watching my daughter when she was younger, I'm like, do you have enough pads in your backpack for school? She had to think about the kind of outfit she was going to wear in case there was any leak through. So I think that just as a side note, really, I feel fundamentally that's part of why we as women cultivate this level of self-responsibility so young and are able to not just care for ourselves, but others. I think that's only one little facet of it, but I do think it's really interesting.
It's something I never thought about. And I love that you're bringing up these things. This is why we do this podcast, because it really starts, like you said, way before we begin it. We think it starts for women, especially. And that's such an important part. You're getting your period. It's like you said, it's a lot of mothers from our generation. I just turned 50. We're like, shh, just go, or, one of my favorite, my parents used to say, children, especially girls, should be seen and not heard, sit there and look pretty. and don't speak up. So we have to reprogram ourselves for these times. And it's really, I'm really grateful to be a mother in these times. So I can mother my mom's amazing and I love her. She had 11 children. And she
Wow.
she she mothered how she knew how to mother and how she was taught to mother, but with this new age we're giving them so many more tools and they're really being enlightened at a young age. And my daughter used to think I was so weird and the weird mom, bringing home the crystals and everything, and now she like secretly appreciates it.
I am certain she does, because she realizes there are so many ways to source and, center at, and also you're teaching her about like the energetics of the world, right? And the
Yeah.
healing properties of crystals and energy and spirituality, which is such an incredible gift to instill in our children.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful time to be a parent. Scary time, but beautiful time as well, because we have more tools in our spiritual toolbox, in our emotional intelligence toolbox to hand down to our children these days. So that's great. I want to get back to the movement because a lot of people do reach out to me and say, Dina, how do I start on my spiritual path? And it is different for everyone. I'm a big believer in astrology, and everyone handles things differently based on who they are and how much divine feminine they have tapped into and how much masculine energy they're holding on to, or masculine wounds and feminine wounds. So it's very different for everybody, but this important part of women being different as far as movement is concerned. And even what you spoke about in one of your videos about men needing to understand how we're different and how we equate to Mother Nature. And we are Mother Nature. So with yoga, I felt like so rigid and my meditation was when people say, well, when do you meditate? I meditate all day long when I see that little bird in the puddle, as I'm going for a walk in nature and see, a beautiful flower. That's my form of meditation. But again, it didn't start until I started moving my body that I was able to process some of the trauma physically. So talk to me about that and where you found that was the key to it.
Absolutely. And I really want to begin this conversation by saying, by no means, not 1% of me is knocking yoga or meditation. I think they are gorgeous pieces of healing and discovery and journeying. Absolutely. I love them both. I just always had this sense that maybe I was doing something wrong, because I never felt the way I'd hear a lot of other people describe as much as I tried. And I just thought, well, if I could just do it right enough, maybe I'd feel something that other people were speaking of. And so also just wanting to pause and recognize that both yoga and meditation were founded by men for men. Not again to say that women can't do it. Of course we can. But I just want to open up this consideration for women, that if they're feeling like it's something feels like it's missing for them in the way they want to be in spiritual practice, I would love to suggest the idea of dancing and hip circling, deep, slow root chakra hip circling to connect with your body and to be in movement. I have playlist after playlist after playlist that are categorized by all the huge wide range of all the different emotions we experience. And when I'm working with a client who is stuck in deep isolation or rage or grief or worry or confusion, I have playlists for all of that. And I will send them some songs and say, put this on and move to this music. Keep moving until you feel like something gets loosened up. Because we are Mother Nature, because we create life. Even if you never have a child, even if your uterus has been removed, every woman is created with that divine potentiality in her womb space. And for women, whether or not you're having periods, you've already gone through menopause, we were made to cycle every 7 days. We are responding to the moon. Our body is changing. So to think that we would just sit in stillness all the time to communicate, to express, to feel seems very anti what our bodies were made for. So when I helped my husband also understand that rather than receive my emotions or my intensity or my grief or my anything, or the grief this hour, and an hour later, the overwhelming joy with tears. Felt very confusing to him. So when I helped him understand, babe, it's like when there's a storm that passes through here in South Florida, and an hour later, the rainbow comes out and the sun peeks behind the clouds, and all that destruction is left behind. The palms are all over the ground from the wind that just came through, and the rain. That is what women experience internally. And my joy right now doesn't mean that my grief an hour ago wasn't real and that I can't hold them simultaneously. And so this understanding that we are like Mother Nature, ebbing and flowing so beautifully throughout the day, throughout the week and month and seasons, I think helps men to deeply understand women emotionally in a way that feels less of, I need to fix her. Oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Why is she crying right now? She was laughing an hour ago. But rather to honor and respect the same way that Mother Nature is just moving at all times, so are we. And as sensitive, these beautifully sensitive creatures, and I'm not saying men aren't, I think women are so connected. Those of us who are really connected are feeling it all.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm crying in that hour and smiling an hour later is because I'm in the moments and I'm letting it all wash over me. And I'm not afraid to be vulnerable and express what I'm feeling as it's happening in real time.
You know what I've learned recently is to liken to giving birth. And like you said, even if you haven't given birth, or to allow these emotions to go through you with the process, because when the labor pains come on, that anxiety kicks in, and you start to get a little nervous, and then all of a sudden the pain kicks in, and the grief, of all, like what's happening, the fearfulness, and then the release, and the relief of it all. I've been processing, because I'm recognizing as women, this gift that we have to give birth, or again, you don't have to have physically given birth to, we all have it innately in us, but to allow the emotions come through like that. Something happened just yesterday in EMDR. I love EMDR. It's one of my favorite modalities, again, because it moves it through the body. And it was my husband and I go together. I go first, he goes second. So when I went out to get him and say, your turn, he was on a very upsetting business phone call he was on before I even went in. So this is like an hour and a half later. And he was just at a 20. I can't go in, I got to finish this, whatever. And I instantly got this headache. So I went back in to tell doctor, he's going to be a little bit. And I'm like, hold my head. He's like, what's the matter? I'm like, I just got an instant headache from, I guess, his anxiety. I felt it. He's like, all right, let's sit with that. And I put the headphones on and he started tapping, and it went through every part of my body. And I actually felt it come through, like I was giving birth, to transmute that energy into something, again, positive and beautiful, because we as women hold that gift to do that. So I'm really finding that so helpful to, use that analogy of giving birth for everything that I feel come up with me, every emotion that comes up, every trigger that happens, I give birth to it. I feel it. I move through it. I scream if I have to. I, moan, and then I release it. So it's really helped me quite a bit, and it took me 50 years to get there. So
You know what though, Dina, better late than never. I mean, it's so true. I often use the analogy. I taught natural childbirth classes for 10 years, and you often use the analogy with clients that when they're in something so hard right now, and I will use the analogy of, you're in the contraction right now. You are in the birth canal. Just keep working with these contractions. Don't be afraid of this pain. This pain is going to bring you through and rebirth this next version of you. So I love that you speak of that as well, because I think that's the potentiality that we have when we are moving with our bodies and these emotions, and to not be afraid of them. And when women, or all humans, when we numb with coping mechanisms like alcohol, or, shopping addiction, or pornography addiction, or food addiction, or, cattiness, I think all we're doing is trying to numb whatever it is that we're actually afraid to feel. And ultimately, I believe deeply that our rates of breast cancer as women are not a coincidence. The rates of ovarian and uterine cancer are not a coincidence. Yes, I think there's a million and other one reasons, which would be a different show for a different day as to how we got there. But I really believe a big component is stuffing all of the emotions. That energy has to go somewhere. If we just keep holding it inside of our body, it's like a ticking time bomb. And eventually the body's trying to signal you to do something to release these emotions. And if and when we don't, our body finds a way.
Yeah, it manifests itself in disease and all other ways. And I'm just realizing that now, that the mind body connection, what it really means. And for me, I've gone through some recent trauma, and I feel like even spiritually and emotionally, I've overcome a lot of it and forgave and did all that. But I didn't realize how much my body was holding on to things. And I just talked about this in a recent podcast. We always kind of go back to the same things because it's so true. Is, I'm very much into cleansing the body and giving your system a break. And I always get caught up in the liver and kidneys. And I don't drink, I don't do drugs other than plant medicine. I realized I was just holding all this anger and all this fear, because the kidneys are fear and, liver is anger, that some of it wasn't even my own. It was my ancestors or from other lifetimes, childhood. But once you realize that you really need to move your body and break up your fascia, and continue being in the flow. And like you said, when you're giving birth, what do? They give you breathing. You go for breathing classes, to breathe through it and learn to like belly breathe and breath work. All of it is really key. You can work on your mind so much and spirituality so much, but if you don't really address the body, and for women especially so important, like you said, it's going to manifest itself in disease, and that's what we're trying to avoid. And I hope, I've been told recently that once you release it from your body, that's the last of the trauma.
That's the last place that it stopped, right? And stuck.
Yeah.
Dina, this conversation is so beautiful. And it just listening to you made a connection for me. And that's why I love these conversations so much, because referring back to teaching natural childbirth for 10 years, the reason that I was propelled by that as well was because when I was pregnant around the same time as all of my girlfriends, and they were coming back after their birth with one horror story after another, one trauma story after another, I thought, wow, I don't think it was supposed to be this way. So I really started investigating natural childbirth and understanding what that really was. At the time I did the Bradley method of natural childbirth to really understand how to move my body, because they were saying, I did all the breathing. It wasn't working. And so I just made the connection when you said that. I have 4 children, 2 of which I gave birth to and 2 who are adopted. And that's only for context of how many times I've been through the birthing process. With both of them, I spent most of my time in labor dancing. I danced and danced. My husband danced with me. I did the deepest, slowest hip circles for hours. I was on the birthing ball. I was on my hands and knees. I was doing so much movement and being upright and working with gravity. And I think that really was what propelled me to share the message with all the women. And that's why I got certified to teach at the time, because I wanted more women to know how to work with their bodies in birth through dancing and through movement. And it's just funny how it keeps coming back to dancing and moving for me. Wow. Thank you for that light bulb moment.
I love it. It's so funny now. I call it like, it's very like tribal, the way I like dance in the morning. And, of course it's in I don't care what I look like. I'm full on naked. I don't care about the cellulite, nothing. It's just tapping into that like tribal energy that our ancestors, relied on, their teachings, and we lost it somewhere along the way. And yeah, of course it's fun to go out with your girls and dance and all of that, but to do it in a way that is more ritual based is really where the magic happens.
I agree with you. I think a lot of times dance, especially in this country and our culture here in America, is performative based. Like little girls get into, the dance classes, then they do the recital and perform. Great. Or then women go out with their girlfriends, and it's even performative then on the dance floor. It's like, oh, I wonder if that person's looking at me. I wonder if they think I'm sexy the way I move. And so what you're speaking of is that kind of movement and dancing for the sake of connection to body and self. And every single morning, I have about a 4-minute ritual. People are always like, what do you do to stay so aligned and so in love with yourself? I'm like, it takes me 4 minutes every morning. And one of those things is dancing every morning in the mirror, naked, for
Same.
myself. It is such
Same.
a powerful way to anchor in and ground myself into what I know to be true about myself and this life. And from that space, I overflow all day into my clients, into my family, into my partner, into my community, because I fill up first. And we don't need hours and hours to do this work either. I think
No.
some women are like, well, I work full time outside of the home. I don't have all this time. I'm like, oh, sister, if you've got 5 minutes, I'll give you a self-care soul routine that will knock your socks off.
Yeah. And the difference also between doing a class, going to your 9 a.m. class every morning or something, is when you move your body in this way, you're intuitively tapping into areas that need more movement versus an instructor who's not aligned with your body. Some days I need more in my hips, some days I need more heart opening things. And I just go with the flow. I put on the music and I let it go where it takes me. And that's when, you're able to tap into that divine feminine, which, I mean, women, sometimes I just want to shake them sometimes. Like, once you're tapped into that, that's when the flow of abundance, that's when the flow of everything happens. Like, you don't need to manifest too hard or, make it so rigid. When you're in that flow is when all the magic and all the beauty flows in effortlessly. So it's just a matter of that, like you said, the few minutes of honoring your body and tapping into that divine feminine where the magic is.
Dina, you're exactly right. And I think when people are always asking me, like, so what is your ritual for this? And what is your ritual for that? And I talk about my life is everything I do is the art of ritual, because I'm so tapped in and connected to my divine feminine. The way I eat my food, the way I speak to my children, the way we're having this conversation, there's really no time where it's like, okay, this is Amanda in this fashion. This is when she's with clients or on a podcast. It's the same always. And in that, there is never this moment of like, okay, now I'm going to connect to my divine feminine. It's like, no, it just gets to be this living embodiment of how I move through the world, which you are exactly right. It brings the most magnetic people like you to me, to all these opportunities, because I'm just living so deeply embodied. I think if we could get more women there, it is the most intoxicating, beautiful elixir in the world. And that's why I do this work.
It certainly is. And I'm so grateful for your work. And I saw a little bit about some of your courses, which we'll talk about in the end, because like I said, I'm not exactly sure where I fit into this, but right now I know I have an audience that, thank God, they listen to the podcast and they're very receptive to it. And everything, some people are going to resonate with some of the other speakers I have on for different reasons. But I think at the end of the day, our message is all the same. At the core of it all, just like religions, man can put it in a box, but at the end, it's all the message of love. What it's supposed to be is a message of love and divinity. Let me ask you a question, because sometimes I do feel this, and I don't know if you could see around my house, but I have Mother Mary everywhere, and I'm not a very religious person, but she's just the essence of divine feminine and compassion. And I adore her and Kuan Yin and everything. And sometimes, I'll be honest, I get a little frustrated where I'm like taking her down, because I feel like I err a little bit too much sometimes on divine feminine, where I don't tap into the masculine enough, especially when it comes to business or boundaries and stuff like that. So am I wrong in thinking that? Is there a way to err too much on the side of divine feminine? Do you need more of that balance somewhere in the middle of both? What is your thoughts on that?
That's a really great question. And I think it's so individual. And I will tell you this, at least I believe I am one of the most embodied women I know in my circle, in my world. And I also carry so much masculine. I was running until about 10 years ago, 100% of my masculine, so disconnected from my feminine. Didn't mean that outwardly I didn't express in feminine ways and look very feminine. It was that my driver inside was a masculine energetic. It was hard. It was curt. It was, we need to get all these things done and we have no time for all the feelings. We got to keep moving. And now with the blend of the two, I don't think I could fully be functioning as a businesswoman, as the COO of my household and this life that we have, if I didn't also have the masculine. So I think it's individual for everybody. And if you're feeling the desire to find more balance, it is so possible. And it's so beautiful to have the moments where the feminine gets to step in. Because the other night we had an issue, we had a situation in our own family where if I had come side by side with my husband and his masculine, and I'd come right next to him with it, we probably would not have resolved the situation that needed a feminine touch to it. So I was able to pull out of the masculine energy and really identify the situation. We need the divine mother right now. So the divine mother came side by side with his divine masculine. And with those two energies together, we were able to solve for a really upsetting situation. But I think if I would have come in like ready to go to like bat and war in the same way that he was, which I used to do, we would just feed off of that. And ultimately there'd be like almost an implosion with not really a great result. So I think that being able to harness both is so powerful and to know when each is needed. I've had to make some really hard decisions in personal boundaries and business stuff. And I'm so thankful that my divine masculine stepped in for those, to recognize that as much as you may love and trust certain people, there are business decisions that need to be made. And
Yeah.
so I think that it's important that we are able to blend them.
Yeah, I'm thinking intuitively, like as long as you embody the divine feminine and know what that is and what that feels like, it's okay to lean towards the balance of it all. Like you said, when you need to lean either way, both of them are. But as long as you've felt it and you've seen it and you know what it is in your soul, I think that's what's missing. Is a lot of women haven't gone there and haven't tapped into that and haven't felt the beauty and the flow and the abundance of it all. I just
think
added,
because it hasn't felt safe for a long time. I think to
yes.
be really in our bodies as women for most of our time on this planet has not been a safe thing. And like you said earlier, referring back to, I love that you are in this understanding. It's so powerful of the ancestral trauma and the lineage that we carry in our nervous systems and our cells, so that often the depths of pain we feel aren't even just ours. We're carrying our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers' pain, because when you were just a little fetus inside of your mother's womb, part of you, the part of you that was the feminine, was already inside of your mother when she was a fetus inside of her mother. Because at 12 weeks gestation, you are already, when you're inside your mother's womb at 12 weeks, you already have all the eggs of your lifetime. And so if your mother, when she was a little girl, was feeling pain or trauma or abuse, the cells inside of her womb, the eggs inside of her womb, we're also feeling it. We're getting coded for it. So to think that we have evolved past that keeps us really stuck and understanding how to heal and why sometimes the pain feels so much bigger, because it's not always ours.
Yeah.
It's really profound when we understand that connection.
Yeah. And even when your mother was carrying you, the pain that she and the trauma that she endured during that, or it's all in our DNA. And it's the sooner we recognize that and work through it, we'll be the generational healers, and save our children from all of that. So, I mean, I do this work selfishly because I want to feel better, but more so because I'm a mother of a daughter, and it stops here, with us.
Yes.
So, and I always say, we talk about a lot of generational trauma, but there's so many generational gifts as well, and wisdom. And it's about discernment to, tap into what it is you want to keep carrying, and the lineage that you want to bring forth and bring forward and hand down to your children and your grandchildren. And like I said, I'm so grateful to be mother in this time, to have that, kind of knowledge in this new earth that's emerging. that we're able to really start a whole new way of living with emotional intelligence for our sons as well. For our sons as well. I tell my husband all the time, he's this big CEO, and I'm like, once you tap into that divine feminine, like you don't have to white knuckle the deals. They'll just happen. They'll just come. And it's beautiful to watch that he's going through that, and we're going through that together, because it's happening, and he's a believer now. So,
Well, that's
you
with
know,
your leadership, right? Like as that divine woman leading on the path to say, this is what is possible. This is how we can create this incredible life. It doesn't have to be with so much angst and so much pain to get there. When we let go a little bit on the reins and we trust and we move in the energy of what we're calling in, it gets to come to us in the way that was always meant to come to us.
yeah, it's really a beautiful thing. Another one of your posts I really like. I was up last night scrolling and taking notes about what I wanted to talk about today. And I knew it was going to flow effortlessly because, like I said, you're in my brain. You just articulated so beautifully. Um, the princess versus the queen.
Yes. Yes. That is the bulk of the work that I do, honestly,
Mhm.
because until about 10 years ago, I was living my life in princess energy and I had no idea. I really didn't understand the difference. And when I tell you that it was hands down one of the greatest transformations of my life, transforming from that baby princess to the queen. And here for context, I can explain the baby princess would be like the little girl who her feelings get hurt and she picks up her shovel and her bucket from the sandbox and she stomps off. She doesn't tell anybody why she stomped off. Her feelings just got hurt and she's going to go sulk alone under the tree until someone comes. And then someone's going to come and ask her what's wrong. And she's going to say, I'm just mad. But she's not going to give anybody any clues as to why. Or she's going to be in this energy of constantly seeking and searching and neediness and never enoughness and help me feel worthy and prove to me I'm good enough. Notice me. Do I get your thumbs up? Constantly searching outside of herself to source any feelings of self-love or self-worth. So she is in my mind, she's running around like maybe between the ages of 10 and 13 years old, contextually, if we were to imagine her. She's so awkward and unsure of herself, but she may appear on the outside that she's got it all together, but inside she's swirling mess of anxiety. And she doesn't even know, she questions all the words that come out of her mouth. And the queen walks into a room and you feel her presence. You feel her energy. You feel the safety of her. You feel the authenticity of her. You know that every word that comes out of her mouth is hers and divinely guided. And she's not doing it for praise. She's not doing it for acknowledgement. She's doing it because she's so integrated in who she is. She's no longer performing. She's just living divinely, where the baby princess is constantly in performance and seeking approval. And so that life as a baby princess is like feasting, trying to feast on dried breadcrumbs, where the life of a queen is a banquet of options and constant, most gorgeous, beautiful 7-course meals where you will never starve again. So that's like the difference of the energy. And in the work that I do, I help women thank and recognize how their baby princess served them, why she was there. Often women are living in that energy because we didn't learn the rite of passage of how to come into a queen. Women know how to come into bitch mode, cattiness, tearing other women down, competing with other women, but they don't know how to come into the reverence of a queen. And so my work takes them through the journey in all aspects, even in sensuality and sexuality. When we think about it in sex, women who don't know what they want in the bedroom, but then blame their partners for not being able to please them, that's a baby princess. I said to a woman recently, she was complaining about her husband in bed. And I said, tell me what you want. What do you so desire him to do? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, so sister, if you don't even know what you want, why would you ever think he would? And why would you think it's permissible that he should just play guessing games? How fun do you think that is for him or for you? But that's like not wanting to take responsibility and pouting and being like, figure out what I like. That's the baby princess energy. The queen says, oh, my love, let me show you what I like. because she's taken the ownership and radical responsibility of every aspect of her life. And so when you live from that energy, there is no more anger, there is no more finger pointing, there is no more blaming, because you are sourced from within and you are so responsible. Every feeling that I feel of hurt or something in, I'm in the world and something hurts me or angers me, or I go right into, how are you responsible for this, Amanda? Why are you allowing that thing that person said to land inside of you that way? What work is there for you to do? And I'm metabolizing and alchemizing that stuff in real time because I've been doing it for so long now that I don't have resentment. I don't take things out on people. Because I'm in every moment processing as it's happening to me. That's what a queen does.
I love that so much. And it's funny because I've always corrected people, even when I first started dating my husband, he called me princess. I'm like, up, queen. And I even,
Oh,
I
yes.
even, my background is coming from this crazy show that tears women apart, and I quit for a reason. And there was one line where a woman was like, oh, she's such an ice princess. I'm like, ice queen.
Yes, yes,
Correction.
yes.
But it's the victim mentality, the needing to be saved versus I appreciate you wanting to protect me as a protector, because men do want to be protected, but I got this and I want you by my side for support, not to save me. And it's moving into one to the other, and that little micro shift of stepping into queendom that changes like everything. That's divine feminine. That's what it is. And I love that you're teaching that. How do you teach it? Is it through a course online? Is it through Zoom?
It is. It's a course online. Yes. Via Zoom. Exactly.
I saw that you just hosted somewhere. We have a place in Highland Beach, so I'm pretty close to you. We should get together next time I'm down there. But I saw that you recently hosted a group of, a small group of women at your home.
I did. I had about 15 women for my most recent retreat, because the work that I do is the mastermind. I have many different levels, but the mastermind is a 6-month journey that culminates in a retreat at the end. And I have 2 that I'm walking women through now. One, which will culminate in a place here in September in South Florida. And then another tier, women who've been with me for most of them 2 years now. At the end, we're going to Greece. We have a villa in Santorini for 5 days where we will be in ritual, divine feminine ritual and celebration that will end with a photo shoot in Santorini with a 40-foot flowing gown.
My girlfriend just did that when we were there. Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
So I'm doing that for all of the women. Because this journey, how they come in, I get a photo of them when they begin working with me. And then the transformation 6 months later, everything looks different. Not because they've done anything different physically, but because they radiate differently. And that comes through every pore, every cell, the way you carry your shoulders, your eye contact, every movement of your body showcases when you've stepped into the queen. The baby princess comes into the room. She's constantly fidgeting with her outfit. She's looking around. She's unsure. She's looking in comparison to everyone else. The queen walks in and it's like, oh yes, there she is. But never in here I am, I'm better than you. But here I am, and let's all gather together as queens. And, one thing I wanted to say about when you mentioned the piece about like the divine masculine wanting to comfort, the other beautiful thing is when you're in your queen energy, that queens own all their rage, all their grief, all their heartbreak. And with what happened a couple of days ago in Texas, I was on my knees in grief, like overwhelmed, feeling like, how is this even possible? I couldn't barely come up for air. I was sobbing. And my husband knows, like, now it doesn't mean I want to be alone. Doesn't mean I've got it all figured out, but as that divine masculine, to be there and hold that energetic with me and be in reverence to my tears and to what I'm feeling, especially as a woman and a mother in this world, that it feels like it's so confused and lost, is really powerful. The old version would have been me and baby princess. I would have like been outraged, so upset. He would have been like, how can I fix it? Or he would have come up with all the strategies of like, well, at least XYZ. And now he knows to say nothing and to be there and let me go to the depths of my pain and just witness it. That's all I need, is to be witnessed in my grief. and my outrage.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. And my husband and I do some couples work. We just held a couples retreat in the Florida space. I don't do anything here in California because this is where I recover.
Yes, yes.
um, but yeah, it's not only stepping into, your queen, but having a king beside you and not a prince
Yes.
is key. And we do lead them into that. Not that it's our responsibility, but just by being in that queen energy, it will inspire them to step into their king energy and go from that, I need to save her and banging on their chest to, like you said, I'm going to give her the space to feel all of the feels and honor it, for her, for us, because we as women do hold the energy for our families.
Oh my gosh. And that's interesting, Dina, because I couldn't agree with you more that when I did a TikTok video about that, the responsibility as women, as mothers to lead as the women, the guides of our family, and the privilege that I see that to be. Some women got really upset with that. They're like,
Oh, I didn't even see it. I have to go find that one.
yeah, like, why are you giving more responsibility to women? I'm like, because this is like the highest privilege in the land, as far as I am concerned, to usher are these men, or these men on our journey, these children on our journey. Like, to me, above anything else that I'm doing, I hold that as like the highest level of responsibility that I have. All of this work I'm doing in the world means nothing if I'm not able to turn and lead my family in the emotional temperature of my family. I feel like is the first place that my work needs to be happening before I can even bring it into the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you're the essence of it. So I'm sure you're doing a beautiful job. I haven't met your family, but it just really makes all the difference in the world to be a mom as a queen versus a princess. I'm sure makes, especially for our daughters, to lead. And I mean, our sons too. We have to teach them to honor the queen in women and not prey on the princess.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I think, that's why a lot of the younger generation is reaching out to me saying, "Oh my gosh, I wish you were my mom." Because
Mm.
unfortunately, and not to point a finger at all, but so many women were not raised to understand how to ever evolve into their queendom. And I think girls in their 20s and early 30s are like looking around desperate for leadership in women, and they're not finding it. And so, and especially when so much of the energetic towards the arc in which we lean as women in this culture, in this world, is toxic beauty culture, we can get really swirled up and losing the sense of who we actually are when the exterior seems to be the most valued. And this is what girls are telling me is, we're exhausted.
Yeah.
We're exhausted of never feeling enough, never pretty enough, never thin enough, never tall enough. Hair is not long enough. Waist doesn't smell enough. We're exhausted. We just want freedom.
Yeah, and one of the video that my daughter sent me of you was you were saying that you went to one of your kids' get-togethers, and everybody was like, "Tell me what you do," but there is no glow like the glow of the queen. There is no glow of when your insides are glowing. It really, you can put on only so much makeup, and we just had a beautiful episode with the founder of Knockout Beauty where we started off talking about great beauty products and then wound up talking about the essence of that glow, where it really comes from, and how important that is. So yeah, I get that all the time. Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I'm like, these rituals, my entire life is a ritual. That's where the glow comes from. The second I open my eyes to the second I go to sleep, I can skip days and I use just a wipe and I don't even use moisturizer. Like, it's not about the products. It's about the essence.
It's so true. And if there's any nugget of wisdom that women take away from that, it is that, like, true radiance does come within the soul. And if you don't know what that means or how to do that, get close to women who are doing it. Pay attention to how they're living, because it is more than possible. And growing up, I have the most incredible, beautifully well-intentioned mother, but she grew up believing that her only value was in the way that she looked, because that was my grandmother's message to her. That was my grandmother's only value, what she believed to be her value, rather. And so I grew up with a mother like that, who, God love her, even in her 70s, still weighs the, I guess in all she's done in this lifetime, still fixates on the way she looks. And I thought, I refuse to ever be a hostage to that barometer, that what matters first in my life is the way that I look. I just feel like that will keep women forever enslaved.
Yeah, and that's something I'm continuing to work on myself. I love how you've embraced your grays and you don't do Botox. I tried during COVID. I have one gray streak here. I'm not completely gray yet. It just looked weird. I just looked like, what is that character from that from that show? One of the monsters or whatever. It was just like this gray right here. And I went about a year without Botox and I kind of felt good. And I have to be honest, my husband is almost 8 years younger than me. And that's where I'm like, I can't like make him feel, like he's with an older woman. I want to keep up. So there is a lot of pressure because he's younger. My daughter's father was 12 years older than me, and I never cared about aging because he was older than me. But now that my husband's younger, I feel the pressure and I don't want to because we did a whole episode on body image and I feel my best when I'm in my muumuus and my robes and no makeup and a ponytail on top of my head. When I get dressed up, I just can't wait to get home, take it all off and strip off everything. And that's the essence of who I really am, is naturals. But it's between being in the public eye and being constantly judged and having a younger husband, I'm really trying hard to have what you have, where you can just embrace it all. But I'll get there eventually.
Of course you will. You'll get there when you're ready to get there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it all depends on what we want to make things mean. We can make it mean that he's 8 years older than me and I'm not doing these things, and it's going to be like, oh gosh, I got to keep up. What if somebody sees him next to a quote unquote older woman? What if we, instead of that story, what if we change the narrative and we make it mean, how sexy is this, that he gets to be with the wisdom queen? How incredible is that? And what does that say about him as a man? What does that say about you as a woman? And the power, if you're in the public eye, to change the narrative. Ooh, that's incredible. I mean, that
I
is
agree.
a gorgeous opportunity to showcase for our future generations what is possible.
I agree. And I think I'm just now coming back to myself. I went through a lot of trauma in the past 7 or 8 years, some physical. I don't know if you Googled before, but I was involved in a home invasion where we were physically beaten.
Oh my gosh,
And
Dina.
yeah,
So
and the person who was arrested for it was my ex-husband. So there's a lot of trauma going on there. And this happened in 2017. And when I tell you, not only can I not look in the mirror after that, because all I saw was pain and like not even me, it just looked like someone different. And I since got my nose fixed and I look like a different person. So it's been a lot of like inner healing to get to where I am now, where I could even like be on a podcast and show my face. And I kind of just fell off the whole face of the world. But the more I heal, the more I look like me again and I see beauty in the mirror and not pain anymore. So I think there's a big element of that I'm working through, but I'm recognizing it. I'm seeing what it's all about. And that's part of growing, is as long as you can see where it's coming from and acknowledge it, and be willing to work through it. That's growth.
Absolutely. And we are on this path, hopefully, of evolution for a lifetime. And where we were last year gets to be different this year and the year after and forever and ever. I don't feel that, at least for myself, that there's this arrival point that I'm going to get to and be like, oh, okay, I made it. I can set my bags down now and check the box. I just feel like every time I go a layer deeper and I discover something new, it's so beautiful. It's this unfolding that I keep getting to do more and more. And one of the images I love holding on to and playing with energetically, and what I do with a lot of my midlife clients, is I ask them to close their eyes and I take them through an imagery exercise and I have them describe to me their 80, 90-year-old self. Where is she? What does she smell like? What does she look like? What is she talking about? What does the wisdom on her body and her arms tell me if she weren't to utter a word? I get emotional just thinking about it. It's so profound because I think we stop asking women to dream at a certain age. And I especially think we stop believing that there's beauty after a certain age. So I have these women really start to cultivate and start to feel her, that crone energy, that wisdom weaver. Who is she? And that's what we are becoming. All of this journey right now is her. I already love her so much. I mean, I have decades to go yet, and I love her so much. I want her to be my grandma. I want her to be my mother. I'm embodying and curating every step that I take today into the arms of her tomorrow. And
I love that.
oh, it's so powerful when we get to imagine who we get to still become and become and become.
I love that so much because I do that with my higher self. Before I go to bed, I imagine my highest self and what she looks like and what she smells like. But I never looked at her as the crone. It was just like the essence of me. And she's always supernatural, flowing natural hair, no makeup, no nothing. So I know that's what it's to be, but I never imagined the wrinkles or any of it. It was kind of just a glowing essence. But I think that will help me. Thank you for that little nugget. It's just to embrace the wrinkles of it all and the saggy skin. And because I used to love that. I used to love playing with my grandma's hands and her arms.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And my grandma, one of my Italian grandmas had so much of like the arm.
We call that the gavadil arms. We're rolling the gavadil.
I love it so much. I don't know. I just feel like there's a wisdom, there's a safety, there's a comfort, there's a come close. I have journeyed. I will share with you everything.
Yes,
that
so
I've
much
learned
wisdom in
along the
their
way.
moo-moos.
Yes. And what you talk about when you think about your higher self, when you imagine her as you're falling asleep at night, what the first, like, I imagined her as you were speaking about her, and the word that came into my mind was freedom. She's free.
That.
She's in her muumuu. Her hair is blowing. She has no makeup on. She's free of all the masks, of all the performance. She's just her divine essence.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, I'm sorry, I don't wear makeup anymore, just when I lip gloss and some mascara, but the Botox, I'm almost there. I'm getting there. But I like you said, it would be such a beautiful message to, even my daughter, that you just be beautiful, no matter who it is, how it shows up. Your authentic self is your best self. So I thank you for your work that you do in this space. It's so needed. You are walking the walk and talking the talk, and that's really important and beautiful to watch. And like I said, if you can impress my daughter Lexi,
I love this.
She's
so
a tough one.
much.
She's a tough one. So this will be the one podcast episode she will listen to. Trust me. I'm like, Lex, do you listen? She's like, I'll get to it.
Those stinkers. I know I have a 19-year-old. She's like, I can't really be bothered right now, Mom. But then of course she's like, oh my gosh, Mom, we were all gunning to go TikTok viral. And like, you like came out and went way ahead of any of us. I didn't even realize that was what's going to happen. I was just sharing my heart.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that I found you, and I'm so glad you're sharing your heart. I would love to have you on from time to time and have these beautiful discussions and inspire women all over the place to really step into their queendom, because there's nothing like the feeling. There is nothing like the feeling. And like I said, a lot of people are looking for their soulmate, and that's a king. That's a king. And the sooner you step into the power of the queen, the sooner he'll show up.
Yes, Dina. Yes. So beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. Where can we find
you
on Instagram? You're at, is it there a dot in between the Midlife Muse?
I don't even know. I think so.
Okay. I will put it all here in the show notes. We'll put all your upcoming things. Maya will get all the notes, because we really need more of you and what you offer to humanity. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I love this conversation so much, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, Dina. It's been such an honor for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.